So when I had moved here to start teaching at UTPA, and I knew that Gloria Anzaldua was from here, and I knew that she had went to Pan American in the 60s. I was so excited to re-engage with Anzaldua's works once again, because I knew that she was writing about experiences that the students here, really, they really relate to, growing up in a border community, and a lot of the stuff she talks about gender and family. For a lot of women here at the university, Anzaldua is writing about their experiences. What does it mean to get an education? That process of getting an education for a lot of women takes them away from these traditional gender roles that they're expected to follow. And Anzaldua writes about that.
Class was great. We engaged in a lot of theory, but more so than just theoretically speaking, a lot of the examples that she talks about were very true to us, because she's writing about borders, but she's speaking about this area. She's talking about the valley. And so a lot of us could identify with what she was writing about. It was like reading our lives in a book that's actually been published. So it was great. It was a great experience.
We've talked about it in class. It applies to all women. It can apply to all Latin cultures. It can apply to also men in the sort of rebelling against your culture. And I think it's it transcends so many boundaries.
Because there's a lot of things that us human beings keep bottled inside that we don't want to share. But then when you read somebody's works that talks about their lives and how it somehow connects to your life, you start to uncap it. And it's very refreshing to know there are people with the same situations in one form or another.
It represents a mythological vision of the three female archetypes as described in Gloria Anzaldua's Borderlands.
So the Gloria Anzaldua multimedia exhibit that the students put together was really inspired by the spring class, the graduate class on Gloria Anzaldua. And what Dr. Stephanie Alvarez had her students do was to take quotes from Anzaldua's writings and to pair those quotes with visual images drawn by Gloria Anzaldua. So based on that, I said, well, okay, let's make it visual. So they talked about using performance, they talked about video, they talked about paintings. So the exhibit really developed from their expertise. I had them all come to class one day, they had to choose a passage, we went around the room, they read the passage, and then we formed groups. So we had a To Live in the Borderlands Means You poem group, because that's one of her poems. We had a shadow beast group. The shadow beast is one of Anzaldua's major theories. We had a mestiza consciousness group, another important intervention by Anzaldua. And then we had a third world feminism group. And then it was really up to them to translate the idea into a visual medium. And I was really blown away by what they came up with.
So these images go with our model, and these images are different things that make up her shadow beast. The rebel is somebody who goes against culture, against values, and she talks about it being hard to look the shadow beast in the mirror and face it, which is yourself. This is the physical representation of the shadow beast. It's the serpent and the shadow. This is what we call gender roles, because it's a young woman behind a fence, and the fence can keep you safe, but it can also keep you back from a lot of things. This is religion, which is part of her shadow beast, because it can help you through a lot, but can also hold you back and restrict what you do with your life. So this is a part of her shadow beast. This here we try to depict the lesbian side of Gloria Anzaldua, because she was a lesbian, and it is something that her family didn't approve of and her culture didn't approve of, and it is part of her shadow beast, the struggle within.
We actually decided to call it Armed with Words. This also falls into the whole third world feminism. The painting's focal point is the hand of a white woman placed over the mouth of an African American woman. The title Armed with Words can be seen as ironic, because the pictures of an African American woman's words being silenced by the hand of white feminists. But in fact, it serves to draw attention to the fact that ethnic women are reclaiming their voice and taking up issues that were ignored by white feminism.
So then one group, the group that had the poem by Anzaldua, they decided to turn that into a video. So what they did is the three members of the group, they went around the valley and they actually took photos. And it was really important to them that they took original photos. They did not want to take photos from the internet. And so they went with their cameras and they took pictures of people in their community. They took a picture of the border wall. They took a picture of an American flag, a Mexican flag, and created this really excellent representation of the poem that's very personal and very meaningful.
En busca del mundo zurdo. Arriba mi gente, toda la gente arriba. In spirit as one, all people are rising.
After going today to this ceremony, I think that she was a healer. That Gloria was a healer. And that was something that you felt when you met her, that there was something about her that you just felt when you met her. Her work continues to influence me.
Gloria's work was a tremendous influence for my own work. And I've written about it, about how she allowed me, she gave me permission to write in my own Spanglish. Yes. And to acknowledge that part of who we are on the border. Her book was one of those life-transforming things for me. And not just because of the language, also because of her fierce, candid portrayal of who we are on the border, including critiques of our culture and of other things. And so for me, those two things, the aspect of the linguistic aspect and also the treatment of the culture, have been really instrumental in shaping my own work as I write my books and do my scholarly work.
The fact that she came out as a lesbian way back then, that was a remarkable feat, because today I don't know that it's any easier. But when I think about it, what that contradiction or that pressure that was on her, and how she wrote about the borderlands within that context, I think it was really a courageous thing to do. And I don't know that we should ever underestimate that, because I have a hunch the Valley's still fairly conservative, as is the rest of the country, given all the backlash that's, so I can only imagine what it must have been, especially in terms of family and how that affected her family, and how her own identity was challenged in some very multiple kinds of ways because of her sexuality.
Gloria really wanted everything to be perfect, but for her, perfect was in the future someplace, which is why it was so hard to publish with Gloria, because she never quite wanted to let go of the baby, so, but she did. And then afterwards, I think she really had no idea how important her work was for a really long time, because she would say, she would come back from speaking someplace and she would say, Joan, it's amazing, they really get what I'm saying. And I'm saying, Gloria, they get it because you wrote a book and you're making this happen. You're making people understand. But she was so humble, about that. And I think in a way also, the part that I always want to talk about is how she just gave so much of herself. And you all know this. She would be in a room and she would wait till every single student had come by at a reading or a signing or a conference. She wouldn't leave until they had all come by. And and you know that this affected her health, but I think it's partially what made it right for her, is that she knew what her work was.
The way that she could articulate those nuances of identity that we all have, that many of us, most of us maybe, have thought about, have felt, but we hadn't been able to give it words. She talks about how our internalized colonialism leads us sometimes to attack people because they're not Chicano enough or Chicana enough, or that we project that onto white people or other people because they aren't fitting these stereotypes that we've learned. Or it's not even just the stereotypes, that's part of it, but because we're carrying around these things that are really dysfunctional. And so she helped us to identify a lot of those things and to forgive ourselves for them and to keep working on making the world a more equitable place, as people have voiced today.
Epistemologically, ontologically, she works with very deep concepts of life, of who we are as human beings. Some of it informed by her beliefs around her studies of Buddhism and metaphysics, but a lot of it informed by her life on the border and being from the valley.
I think that's another thing that comes out of a class like this, is the affirmation of stories about the Rio Grande Valley, affirmation of stories about the Mexican-American experience in the US-Mexico borderlands. Most of the classes that I teach at UTPA are Mexican-American literature classes, and I find that it is so eye-opening for the students to read about themselves for the first time. These are stories they're not reading at the high school level. It takes until the college level. Many times it takes the graduate level for students here to see their experiences represented in a text. And so I think that's why Anzaldua, a class all about Gloria Anzaldua, is so important, right? Because it gives the students a whole semester, right, where they can engage and be empowered and, have a model for a role model of a Chicana academic, right, an artist. And also have a role model for writing and publishing.